Okay, so we're back. What we're going to be doing today, or at least part of the day, is inletting the lock plate for this wall gun. Anyway, so just like I did with the tang, I'm going to go and bevel the edges of this lock plate. I just drew a line here so I'd know where to stop. And like the tang, we're going to bevel the edges of the lock plate so that when you put it in the mortise, again, it'll wedge itself in there, and it'll be easier to remove, and it won't get stuck, and you crack the border here, pulling it in and out. So I'm just going to take it over to the belt sander and bevel this edge. You can see here that this thing, even though it's pre-inletted, it doesn't fit. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to get this thing to fit perfectly. And sometimes it's easier just to not have the lock inletted at all and do it yourself rather than taking off tiny pieces of wood here and there. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I'll be back after I get this thing beveled off and show you how it looks. I have the ends beveled off, or the edges, the inside edges beveled off. You can see it there. So what we're going to do now is, see, because they're beveled, it's easier to set in here now, because the inside edges are a little bit more narrower than the outside edges, so it sits inside the mortise a little bit better. What I'm going to do now is get the inletting black and apply it to the bottom side of this lock here, and then tap it, and then whatever's black on the inside we'll remove little by little until it's all the way down. Put the camera down and show you how it goes. Alright, so I've got inletting black all along the edges of this lock plate here, and what I'm going to do is put it inside the existing mortise. Get it lined up as best as I can. Give it a tap. Make sure it's going in there straight down. I don't want there to be any gaps between the existing mortise and this lock plate, because there shouldn't be any gaps. Okay, so you could see where there's some inletting black all along the edges here. And what we want to do is take that off so that little by little the lock plate will sit further and further down and eventually reside where it needs to be in relation to this barrel. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue with that. It's going to take a while to get it all the way down, but that's pretty much the idea. And I'll get the camera back on when I get close to done. What I had to do was, there was a little tiny gap on this end, and there was enough room on this end to push the plate to the right. And what I did, I tried to close that gap because there was enough room to push it forward. So now that that gap is closed, I can now start inletting down. And just to give you an idea, that gap in between the barrel and the lock pan needs to be closed. You can see how big of a gap that is. So that's as much wood that I have to remove from inside the mortise to get this thing to fit all the way down flush against this barrel. So that's what I'm going to be doing for a little while, and I'll turn the camera back on when I get close to done. So let's check it. You can see here where the black is. And those are the areas that I have to remove. It's getting there. Like I said, it's fitting really good on the edges, and now going lower and lower, we'll just have to remove the black and get this thing in contact with the barrel. Alright, so we'll be back in a few. Okay, we're back. As you can see, I have the lock plate at least inletted in. It's pretty close, but it's not close enough. The reason why is because this is a round barrel and it's a tapered barrel. That means the back end of this barrel is wider than the front end of the barrel, so it's tapered. And since this lock plate is flush flat and the barrel is tapered, there's going to be a gap, like a triangular gap here. And it doesn't do any good to lower this end, against the barrel, because then the back end of the lock will stick out. And that's no good. This thing has to lay flat on the back, on the stock, and flat up against this barrel. So what I'm going to have to do is modify this pan at the same angle as this barrel, so it'll fit flush against the barrel, if that makes any sense. Also too, you could see that they have these grooves on the back end of the barrel, and those grooves do not lay flat. You could see that the back part of this pan is touching, and there's a, well, let me take this, hold on a second. Alright, so I've got the lock out of the barrel, but anyway, you could see here that the lock, as it sits across those flats, there's gaps and openings in between there. It's going to sit here, but it's the same up on top, so we'll show you as an example. So those gaps have to go away, otherwise powder will drop inside the back of the pan and may ignite when you spark the flint. So there can't be any gaps between the pan and the barrel. So that means, for that part of it, I've got to file down and flatten the area of the barrel that comes in contact with this bolster. So there's two things I got to do. I have to angle grind or angle the bolster to the same diameter, or to the same taper as the barrel, and then after I do that, I got to file this surface flat so that it sits flush against the back of this bolster. So I have my work cut out for me. Hopefully I won't mess anything up, but the lock plate is inlet, and there's no gaps yet. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and fix this and do what I got to do, and we'll open up with part 4 once I figure it out. Anyway, that's it for now. Cashtook Bowcraft. Thanks for watching.